Hello, everyone. I'm Paula Garcia, and I'm the Executive Director of the New Mexico Acequia Association. I grew up in Mora, and I'll be talking to you about my experience with the Hermits Peak Calf Canyon fire and floods of the past year. I work with the Acequia Association. I've been with the organization for about 25 years, and NMAA has been doing advocacy and education for over 30 years on water and agricultural traditions and youth and leadership development. You can see from this map that acequias are located around the state, mostly in the tributaries, the high elevation mountain villages. And in that sense, they're some of the most vulnerable communities to catastrophic wildfire and post-wildfire flooding. And we have certainly seen that with Hermits Peak Calf Canyon. This is the Hermits Peak landscape that we're looking at. A view from Gallina's Canyon. You could see how devastating the fire has been on the watershed, where it was once covered with beautiful forest. It's now charred, and all of that debris and sediment has been washing down the watershed into the streams and into the Las Vegas water system, which has been a very big issue, as many of you know, and has been devastating for acequias downstream who have relied on this watershed for their water for hundreds of years. The Hermits Peak Calf Canyon fire started as a controlled burn, and it escaped the controlled burn perimeter, and you could see what happened after that. Hermits Peak was almost contained, but then later in April, the Calf Canyon fire started from some smoldering pit piles of cleared trees from thinning projects. So you could see what was going on around April 22nd. From the morning to the afternoon, the fire spread rapidly. It made a 15-mile run through this area of Rociada, and where I grew up in Yosco Blanco. This is our homeland, and it was ravaged in one day. We watched helplessly as the fire went from valley to valley, over ridges into other communities and other villages, and people had to rapidly evacuate. We were moving our farm equipment out of our barns into the fields to try to save our farm equipment. And this is what Mora looked like. Keep in mind that Mora is the home to our school, to our main parish of our churches, and the main institutions of our community, and they came very close to the edge of this fire. Hundreds of homes were burned, and that was devastating for many, many families. But there were also many homes that were saved. But you could see what was going on in these areas that were burned. As families came back from evacuation, they came back to a burned landscape, and you could see that in a lot of places, had it not been for these dozer lines, that fire would have reached hundreds more homes. For a lot of people, the smoke was very difficult to endure, and even as we watched from a distance, seeing our landscape burn was traumatic and devastating. As we saw the rains come, there was a sense of relief, as the fire had burned most of our favorite places on this side of the mountain. It was starting to move towards Taos or Angel Fire or Penasco, and the monsoons came just in time to put that fire out. But at the same time, we had a lot of anxiety and a lot of dread around the coming of the monsoon season because of the flooding that we knew was going to happen. So for a lot of people, it was another round of evacuations. This is what's happening in our watersheds. The slopes were so bare of vegetation that this is the result. There was major erosion, and that sediment and ash and debris flowed into our rivers and down into our valleys and into our acequias. This is an excerpt of what happened to one family.
This water is raging like a fucking machine. A real bad motherfucker.
Every time it rained, we had communities that were going through flooding like this over and over again. And the aftermath is something that we're still grappling with. Apologize for the bad language, but that was really how people felt around here when every time it flooded. And the aftermath of the flooding, this is what the acequias look like. They're inoperable. They're so filled with ash and sediment and debris that we lost an entire season of irrigation. This is what the acequias look like in a lot of places. If not the entire stretch, it's in partial stretches, but even if part of it's clogged up, none of the acequia can be used because it's just, we can't flow water in it. We've never seen this before in our entire history, not on this widespread scale. This is where a diversion used to be. You can't even see it anymore. It's covered under large boulders and large logs. And this is what an acequia looks like when it's clogged with all of that sediment that's coming down from our watersheds. This is a gentleman's driveway. This is an acequia about 20 miles downstream from a burn scar. So this kind of sediment clogs up acequias way downstream. It's not just immediately in the burn scar. This is way downstream from Las Vegas. Another acequia clogged by debris. This village, this is a community that not just the acequia was destroyed, but the mutual domestic water line, the fiber optic cable, and the county road where this culvert was crossing. More acequia damage here. You can see what the flooding looks like in the community and in the acequia. More acequias that are inoperable. This is major damage that's very, very difficult to repair. We mapped about 72 acequias in the burn scar and assisted almost 40 of them with FEMA applications. That's a long and arduous process, and that's only for the acequia infrastructure. FEMA does not do any kind of work in the watershed or on the land in the landscape. We're struggling with how that kind of work can be done. And we're on a steep learning curve because we've never done this before. This is the watershed that feeds into Murphy Lake. And you can see that it's got a mosaic pattern, but a lot of this area is much blacker than this. This looks relatively nice. But the flooding that we're getting in this watershed has been devastating, and all the acequias that are irrigating from this area are clogged up and inoperable. There's a long road to recovery. We know that this is a long haul effort. It's going to take decades. For many of us, it's going to take the rest of our lives. But we need much more effective programs for landscape scale restoration. And this is not something that can be done under the current framework. The programs are siloed. The Forest Service looks at its lands, NRCS has its lands, but it's private property, and not all private property owners participate. And there's a major capacity problem to organize and mobilize people in this checkered landscape to get all on board on one project. And it's not clear to us how that's going to happen. there's not been any one coordinated effort yet in this area. There are some federal programs that we've observed, but it's not clear how they're going to help us move toward recovery. Immediately after the fire, you had a bear team, but the bear team is really a technical exercise. They generate some maps, make some recommendations for the Forest Service land, but apparently aren't too concerned with the downstream community based on what you see in those reports. They're good technical reports, but they're limited. The burn area rehabilitation program needs more resources in order to have an impact, and there's so many more floods that are happening now. More post-fire flooding, and this program should be expanded at the national level. The Joint Chiefs program has potential because it's a collaboration between Forest Service and NRCS, and it would be nice if more of those resources could be allocated to post-fire recovery. Likewise, RCPP and EQIP have a lot of potential, but for limited resource communities, sometimes those programs can be difficult to participate in, especially RCPP because of the proposal process. Some bright spots are on the horizon. There's some really good work and thinking and planning happening around reforestation, and the John Harrington Center here in Mora is going to be a hub for the reforestation efforts to provide more seedlings for reforestation. In some of these areas, the Acequias are starting their own recovery. While they haven't been able to access FEMA funds yet, we have been using some private donations to get some debris removed, and they're doing that by renting equipment and buying diesel. On Acequia La Sierra, this is a Cassidy Mill ditch. They rented a track hole, as you can see. So those are some of the efforts underway. This was with a donation from Western Sky Community Health. Also, we're accepting volunteers if anyone's interested in signing up for an Acequia cleaning. In the fall, we did some limited Acequia work with hand crews. We had volunteers from River Source and Los Jardines Institute, which was really wonderful. We're so grateful for that. And if anyone's interested in signing up for a work crew, they can reach out to me. Now's your chance to work on an Acequia. And we've also worked on an arrangement with DOT. So DOT can come in and use their equipment to clean Acequias, and then they get reimbursed from the disaster agency. So DHSEM has been a partner in this, as well as, of course, FEMA will be a partner here in Mora. So this is really encouraging, and we've got lots of Acequias signed up to get this help, and we're hoping that at least some of them will be cleaned out before the spring. So we're hopeful, but we're also bracing for tough times ahead because this flooding is going to happen repeatedly, and it's not a one-time thing. So we need to pace ourselves and recover, get through these in phases, and look forward to the long-term recovery at the same time. So with that, I just want to thank you for your hard work and your love of the land, and thank you for all your attention to my presentation today. Thank you.